All right, guys, our final speaker for this session is Ethan Fedida, and Ethan is a BA alum of 2012 and is the co-founder of the Campfire Group. And he comes to us today from New York City to share his story and how he supports early stage founders and their businesses. Ethan has been at the forefront of digital media strategy and execution for years. Ethan cut his teeth at the Huffington Post, where he led their audience development, editorial partnerships, and social media teams. After HuffPost, Ethan was the vice president of audience development for Entercom, leading the digital business for the radio giant through its merger with CBS Radio, focusing on content strategy, distribution, social, and platform building. Ethan knows how to drive any digital campaign forward strategically, determining the proper audiences to reach and employ the best strategies to connect with them. And please welcome Ethan Fedida.
And thanks again to Matt and John for all those great insights. Make sure I know what I'm doing here. Hi everybody. I'm Ethan. Thanks for the lovely introduction. Campfire Group. Campfire Group's my business. The name of this session is Promise with a Purpose: How to Do Well by Doing Good. It's sort of core to what we're doing, and I think a lot of businesses are starting to recognize the importance of social impact and doing well in the world. So that's what we're going to explore. As mentioned, I was a class of 2012. I majored in medicine, health, and society. Like everybody else, I was going to be a doctor. Didn't become a doctor, as you can see. Also minored in philosophy and sociology. If you're looking to follow someone on social media, those are all my handles. As mentioned, I worked at the Huffington Post. I started there. That was my first job out of college. Started as a social media editor on a vertical and worked my way up there over the course of 5 or 6 years. At the end of my stint there, I was basically running the entire audience development team. So that really was basically me in charge of what we do with the content after it's produced. How do we get that content out to audience? How do people see our content, interact with it, consume it? I worked at Aussie Media for about 9 months. If anybody followed media news over the last 5 or 6 months, that's what that lull is for. Then I went to CBS Radio, which merged with Entercom, and was their VP of audience there as well. Currently, we're going to be mostly talking about Campfire Group, but you'll see plenty of shameless plugs throughout this. Also in the midst of starting a performance marketing business called AdShake that effectively launched a couple weeks ago. Basically do paid marketing for e-commerce brands using some cool machine learning and AI to really execute at a high level. And then Elfassi Foods is a little side hustle that I have. I make harissa on the side, and it's almost consumer ready. We have all of our licenses, but we're getting the labels done. So just a few things to fill out the day, because there's always enough hours in the day. So Campfire Group, a lot of words on this screen. Don't worry about most of them. Really, it's myself and my co-founder. We met while working at the Huffington Post. As I said, I was head of audience. She was our head of creative and multimedia storytelling. And while we were there, we really connected on trying to take the audience-first approach in creation. So who are you trying to reach? How are you trying to reach them? And ultimately, that should inform the content that you're creating. And then that informs what distribution channels you use to get that content out there. Our slogan, act, inspire, engage. We want businesses, companies, individuals, corporations, anybody to act, do something. Doesn't have to be sort of the run of the mill. You just should do something good. Have that be integral to what your business is. We'll get more into that. But this is sort of how we discuss sort of our social impact side of the business. The action point, doing something good, is that first step. Inspire, that's the hope. When you do something good, you want people to connect with that. Not only do you want to do something good because it's the right thing to do, but you want to do something good because ultimately you're trying to leave a mark. You're trying to influence a consumer. You're trying to influence an investor. You're trying to influence the broad opinion of your company. Whatever that sort of MO is, you want to make sure that what the action is then inspiring. And then the engage piece is sort of going back to the audience development piece and the distribution piece. Once you've done the action, once it's landed, how do you tell that story? How do you get that out there? How do you explain why you did it, what you did, and how does that ultimately help your business? So just a quick run through of some stats. I think you're all here probably because you know this in some way, shape, or form. But obviously, social impact has become a much larger part of the corporate landscape over the last 5, 10, 15 years. I know for sure that I was very tired of the we're all in this together, we're Bounty commercials during the pandemic, or Clorox telling us how we're all going to do great. Fuck that, that's bullshit. They obviously are trying to ride the wave of social impact awareness and are doing it in very transactional ways. Running a campaign on a commercial that says, we're Clorox, we're selling out our product left and right in the middle of a global pandemic, but we're all in this together, doesn't really land. So that's sort of the idea behind the Act and Inspire piece. It really needs to be fundamental and core to your business, and that's sort of what we're going to explore here. But from a statistics perspective, because I know this is sort of always what lands the perception, these stats were from before the pandemic. Obviously, those numbers have moved since then just because priorities shift, but I think these are representative of what the landscape was and will continue to be. These are all pulled up from the millennial cohort, but the Zoomer cohort is even more committed to these causes. So 91% of millennials would switch to brands associated to a cause, as long as it's a similar price. That's basically everybody's willing to shop from a cause-based brand. 81% expect their favorite companies to make a declaration of corporate governance and be a good corporate citizen. You shop or consume from or interact with businesses you expect to do good in the world, and you want them to do good in the world. Surprisingly, 70% of people would pay more for a product that makes an impact. So that's actually sacrificing more of your hard-earned money to use your spending power to influence a cause or shift from a business that doesn't and shift to a business that does. And I think the one that's the most surprising is 62% of millennials are willing to take a pay cut to work for a socially responsible company. That's significant. That's a lot of people. Some more stats. 83% of millennials say it's important for companies they buy from to align with their beliefs. We like to say that there's nothing inherently noble in neutrality. At this point, you have to take a stand. You have to be aligned with something. Ideally, it's the right thing to be aligned with, but you need to have core principles on your business that align you with some sort of cause or some sort of action. 87% of millennials would buy a product with a social environmental benefit. 76% of 18 to 34-year-olds like when their CEOs are outspoken on a topic. They expect that. They expect that the leaders of the businesses that they interact with, purchase from, consume from, are aligned with what they believe in and are speaking out. They aren't sitting on the sidelines as the Black Lives Matter protests pop up or the vaccine debate rages. Those are causes that we've seen are very real over the last couple of years, and that ranges from cause A to cause Z. Consumption, a great term I love. Using your consumption power to support different causes. Just to try to throw in a Gen Z stat, 73% of them are willing to pay more for sustainable products. So, these are all stats to try to emphasize the point that social impact is very real in the corporate landscape, and the consumers are not only smart and wise to what social impact is, they believe in it, and they believe that your company should be doing that, but also they expect it. And then on the consumption piece, I have an example that I'll show later, a business that we work with called Finch. That is a really great example of this. Some more words about our business, our core tenets, they're on our website. If you like our colors or our font, feel free to check them out. But yeah, really at the core of it, I came from media. I'm a storyteller at heart. My partner is a storyteller at heart. Storytelling is a crux of all this. If you do good and you don't tell a good story, no one knows about it, it doesn't matter. If you're a business that isn't doing good, take the social impact piece out of it. Your core story is really what is needed for you to understand who you are as a business, where your business needs to go, but also for whomever your end consumer is. If you're selling a CPG product, you need to have your story convey why they should buy your product. If you are B2B, other businesses need to know what it is that you're doing, and having that core story buttoned up is really, really important. We take it a step further and layer in the social impact piece. So if you start at the top of the flywheel, company does good. That's the act piece, right? You find a way to create a really great story around that, distribute that story. That's the great social impact storytelling. that gets out there, that reaches people. All of a sudden your bottom line rises, you make more money, you went viral, something happens that's positive, it's a positive reinforcement. So you get to do more of it. And that sort of just feeds itself, and it's a nice continuous cycle. So now we'll get into some of the businesses that we worked on. De Beers Group was our first client. We were very, very lucky to open our business and start with a multi-billion-dollar diamond company. Not the company you would expect to be the face of social impact. Very checkered past, given the diamond landscape as a whole. We did a lot of digging into making sure that what they were doing was truly good and positive social impact, and we ultimately decided that it was. Awesome project. Effectively, I could tell this story over an hour. I'll do it in a minute. De Beers had all these conservation parks in South Africa. They were doing really well. There wasn't any poaching. As a result, they had too many elephants. They had to figure out, what do I do with these elephants? So we were brought in. We partnered them with the Peace Parks Foundation, which was the nonprofit started by Nelson Mandela. We partnered them with the Mozambique and South African governments and came in and said, look, we have all these extra elephants in South Africa. Extra elephants. There's never really too many elephants at this point in history, but we have too many elephants in this ecosystem. We need to move them somewhere. We decided, let's move them to Mozambique, neighboring country, doesn't have a thriving wildlife or ecosystem, has no elephants because they were all sort of poached out of existence 20, 30 years ago during Civil War. So we figured out a way to make this partnership work. We brought in the world's leading large game expert for the actual translocation of the elephants. And then we moved the elephants. We moved them from South Africa to Mozambique. That could happen in a vacuum. Like they needed to do something with the elephants. They needed to do good. They should have done that. That's sort of where the corporate part of it stops. But where our vision comes in on the social impact storytelling side is, when you're doing that, keep in mind who you're distributing that to, or who you want to reach. How do you want that content to be seen? We shot a documentary. We shot social videos and images for Instagram and Facebook. We ran paid ads showing the images of literal elephants being lifted by their legs and lowered into trucks. We trucked across South Africa and Mozambique in the longest and largest translocation in history. And we pitched out to media. We come from a media background. We do a lot of PR and media around, okay, this is a story that's being had. Again, if you create from the concept of storytelling, if you create story first, knowing your audience, when you then try to take that story out to the world, it lands. So we could pitch Nat Geo, we could pitch the New York Times and say, look at this awesome project. Doesn't matter that De Beers is a part of it. Look at this awesome project called Moving Giants. We're moving elephants and doing this great conservation work. The brand then comes along for the ride. And that's really where the value is in being seen. So that's sort of the example I use because, one, it's elephants and it's really cool. Two, it's sort of a company that you wouldn't guess is big in the social impact space. But three, it sort of encapsulates sort of how our business operates in terms of the strategic and creative vision of trying to figure out what and how to do a social impact strategy or social impact campaign that is inherent and core to the business. For De Beers Group, they mine diamonds. So showing that they are responsible to the environment in the areas that they're doing that was core to making sure they have a holistic view as a company. And then we handle the execution of delivering that, be it whatever the digital lever is. So there's sort of three ways that you can approach social impact. You can have social impact be part of your DNA, right? You start a company that is fundamentally based on social impact. I think the examples that everybody thinks of, Tom's Shoes, you buy a pair of shoes, they donate a pair of shoes. Bombas Socks, you buy a pair of socks, they donate a pair of socks to the homeless. Those are companies that have a core product, but their identity is social impact, right? That's their business model, is social impact. A client of ours, this is where we get to the shameless plug portion of the talk. One of our clients is a client called Finch. Choose Finch is the website, as you can see on the bottom. They are a Chrome extension. They are focused on sustainability and sustainable consumerism. Now, that's sort of an oxymoron. There is no such thing as sustainable consumerism. Purchasing and shopping and consuming is inherently unsustainable. But we're not going to stop that. We're not going to change how we're doing that. So how can we make the biggest and most outsized impact on the environment and sustainability? They decided that they would become a Chrome extension that rates products, right? Rates them on 6 different categories on their environmental and social impacts, as well as combining that with like the actual product reviews, and then attach that to Amazon products. So if you're shopping on Amazon and you're on 7th generation, which is their pick as the most sustainable toilet paper if you're looking for sustainable toilet paper. You hit the Chrome extension that flies out, and 7th generation gets a 9 out of 10 on sustainability. If I was on Bounty, say, I don't know what the Bounty score is offhand, it might be a 6, it might be an 8, but it would give other suggestions based on what you can do to be more sustainable. So their business, their core business is social impact. So our job now as Campfire Group is to come and tell their story, get their story out there and see and show people that this is inherent to their business, and then have that be the hook that brings them in to using their product. Evelyns Kitchen, another client of ours. I'm based in New York. It's a bakery cafe in East Harlem, not a social impact business. They are sort of like the social impact add-on example that we like to use. In the middle of the pandemic, I think it was actually not the middle, the very beginning, March 22nd is the New York Post article. The cafe posted, if New York City public schools are shutting down, if you don't know where your child's next meal is coming from, come by the cafe and we'll feed them. Post goes viral in New York, gets picked up by the New York Post, among other places, and all of a sudden there's a long line of people outside looking to get fed. That's how the business survived the pandemic. So celebrities saw this and donated, and basically they ran their business for 6, 7, 8 months on the goodwill of people with money, on feeding the community, because it was obviously a really tough time for restaurants and bars and just the hospitality business in general. So they didn't have social impact as a core tenant, but they found an opportunity to do some good because it was the right thing to do. And they found a way to capitalize on that as a business. We got a lot of press from various publications in New York, and that sort of goodwill has snowballed into additional opportunities down the road. They make incredible, those on the bottom there are called banana pudding pudgies. They're like chewy, doughy cookies, and they're excellent. So if you like sweets, recommend. Social impact adjacent. So this is sort of the third category of social impact that we like to talk about is, it's not core to your business, it's not an add-on, but you're sort of operating in a social impact space without being intrinsically social impact. So Alive Ventures is our client. They're a venture design studio solving for older adults. They have the opinion, and I think they do accurately, that older adults are the largest underserved population in the world. We have a lot of conversation on the DE&I spectrum about race, religion, gender. Older adults get left out entirely. They are the third largest economy in the world. Older adults, this is 65 and up. It's all people that have gotten to a certain point in life that they have considerable spending power, but no one designs products for them. They're left out of the entrepreneurship and design sort of loop because when you get to a certain age, the entire conversation is, keep living, stay alive, healthcare. Like that's, we're 65, 75, 85, that's not the narrative of living that people want. So their idea is we need to bring entrepreneurship and VC and investment into this space to start creating for these individuals. Because not only is it a great opportunity for entrepreneurs because there's all that spending power, but it's a needed space to be solved for. So that's sort of the social impact adjacent. And all these sort of are the examples of how you can structure this into your business so that when you do the storytelling, when you get this out there, when you act and you connect with people, this rings true and it feels incredibly authentic. I think consumers are very smart now. And going back to that Clorox example, if you do it in an inauthentic way, no one's gonna, you're gonna probably think more negatively of the business than you did before that. So being inauthentic or haphazard about how you implement these things is, even more detrimental. Like, look, we're not gonna scoff at somebody doing good. That's always great, but you really need to be deliberate in how you do it and how it connects back to your business. So how do I use everything I just talked about? So you really need to understand and internalize what is your offering? What's your core product? What is it that you're trying to get out there? Who are you trying to reach? What do those people want ultimately from you? And then how do we implement that work? How does that feel aligned with who we are and authentically aligned with our business? Basically, what actions align with our core offering, our core business, and their intentions? I use the Asterisk Monster Help Day. When I was at HuffPost, it was owned by AOL. We had like a service day every year where we would donate, 3-4 hours of our day and go to soup kitchens and coat drives and what have you. Great, not poo-pooing, doing good. It's incredibly necessary. But what's the rationale of sending like a team of developers to a soup kitchen? Like, that skill set could be used so much better, especially for a technology business Like AOL's perspective on social impact could have been boosted, and their perspective of being a technology business could have been boosted if they used the skill sets as core to their business to actually do some good with that. Going back to that social impact flywheel, the core principle is if you do well and you do it authentically and it's a good story, it'll distribute itself. You hire PR agencies or social media people to get that story out there, but the baked-in earned media opportunities come because it's a good story and it's authentic. Journalists, content creators, consumers alike are all very aware of companies and corporations sort of greenwashing, whitewashing, tagging along on those sorts of experiences. So again, be very deliberate in how you execute and make sure that it is core and authentic. This is sort of where we say, like, at certain points you have to take risks. You can't, being neutral is risk adverse. So when you take a stand, when you decide to do something, you have to take a fundamental risk. You're taking a risk that the cause that you're aligning yourself with, or the thing you just spoke out about, is going to align ultimately with your audience. That goes back to making sure you know your audience, know what you're offering, know what they're expecting from you, so that when you do take that risk, it's aligned and it's much less of a risk. But ultimately, you really need to best understand, I think this is sort of the summation of all this, best understand your audience, best understand how you're going to distribute that content, or how you're going to distribute that story, how it gets out into the world, and that all informs ultimately how you execute. So yeah, that's our idea on social impact. Thanks.